3 bone-chilling true home intrusion stories that haunted families forever. The sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows of an eerie orange on the crisp autumn leaves. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood, a serene facade masked the sinister events that unfolded within its homes. Picture this: families gathered for dinner, laughter echoing off the walls, completely unaware that lurking just beyond their doors were shadows that could turn their worlds upside down. This wasn't just a run-of-the-mill night. Tonight, the air buzzed with an unsettling chill, whispering secrets that would haunt these families forever. First, there was the Roberts family. They were your typical all-American family: 2 kids, a dog, and a Volkswagen parked in the driveway. But one fateful evening, while the kids chatted excitedly about their soccer practice, a pair of dark, haunting eyes watched from outside. No one noticed the cold sweat trickling down the spine of Mr. Roberts. He felt it. Something was wrong. That night, the fence creaked and the windows rattled, as if the house itself sensed an intruder lurking just beyond the threshold. When they woke up the next morning, the basement door stood wide open. They hadn't been down there since the summer. The horror didn't just lie in the broken lock, it lay in the chilling certainty that someone had been there. Then, there was the Simmons house. A classic Victorian, full of sparkly chandeliers and family pictures hanging on the walls. Little did they know, its history was littered with secrets. One quiet Wednesday, a heavy knock echoed through the halls, jarring Sarah, their 13-year-old daughter, from her room. Yet, when she rushed to the door, no one stood there. Confused, she turned back, her heart racing. The light flickered above her, casting intermittent shadows that played tricks on her mind. And then, the disembodied whisper flowed through the air, soft yet terrifying. The words trailed like smoke from a dying fire, "Let me in." But the most chilling of these tales arose from the Nighthawk Lane incident. The Miller family had just returned from vacation, tired but excited. They opened their front door. What greeted them was chaos. Furniture overturned. Toys scattered across the living room. There was a note on the table, its jagged letters spelling out, "You made the first mistake." What could that possibly mean? All their belongings screamed terror, but it was the sight of their family pictures that sent shivers down their spines. Their faces had been scratched out, defaced with manic strokes. What madness lurked in the shadows of their own home? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As these tales weave together, one question lingers like a shadow at twilight: what connects these families? What unknown terror is pulling the strings behind the closed doors of Maplewood? The answers lie just around the corner, waiting to be uncovered, but which of these families will find the strength to face the darkness? The night holds tight to its secrets, and the next page holds the key. The clock ticked ominously in the Roberts household, each clang echoing with an urgency that made Mr. Roberts' heart race. He stood at the open basement door, an uneasy feeling gnawing at him. He knew they hadn't left it open. The creeping dread that something, or someone, had invaded their sanctuary crept over him like thick fog. "Where's the flashlight?" Mr. Roberts muttered, rifling through the kitchen drawers, his hands trembling. Voices from the living room grew louder, but they felt miles away, smothered by the weight of the silence on the other side of that basement door. Meanwhile, in the Simmons house, Sarah couldn't shake the silence that followed the whisper. "Let me in" echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. She glanced out of her window, scanning the yard. The usual patterns of leaf-strewn pathways were distorted under the moonlight, shadows danced in ways that seemed alive. She mustered her courage and crept down the dim hallway. The light above flickered again, and her breath caught. Was it just the bulb? Or something more sinister? Heart hammering, Sarah reached for the doorknob, every muscle in her body screaming at her to turn back. But curiosity was stronger than fear. With a deep inhale, she swung the door open. Nothing. Just emptiness stared back at her. "Sarah?" Her mother's voice broke the tension, bringing her back. "Get back here." The warning cut through like glass. Back in the Miller home, the family huddled together, eyes darting from the ripped photographs to the overturned furniture. "This is insane," Mrs. Miller whispered, clutching her daughters close. The walls felt like they were closing in, the histories dancing in shadows. Suddenly, her phone buzzed violently on the table, startling them all. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "You're next. What does that mean?" Mr. Miller exclaimed, his voice shaking. "Who is this?" "Turn on the cameras," Mrs. Miller urged, pointing to the security system they had installed last summer, a feeble comfort in this wild nightmare. As the feed blinked to life, the family held their breath. The dim light of the living room cast a weak glow, revealing a blurred figure lurking close to the front door. The scene was surreal, a ghostly outline with features indistinguishable, moving almost imperceptibly. There was something wrong, not just the figure, but the pulse of danger that radiated from the screen. In the Roberts household, Mr. Roberts ventured down the basement stairs, flashlight in hand, illuminating damp walls and dusty corners. But as he descended, something rustled in the distance, a muffled sound fueled by his darkest fears. The basement air turned stale and heavy, as if the room had been holding its breath. He felt compelled to call out, but the words lodged in his throat. From nowhere came a chilling echo, that same haunting whisper, "Let me in." Suddenly, a loud crash erupted, causing him to spin around. Back at the Simmons house, Sarah's heart raced uncontrollably, her palms slick against each other. She barely heard her mother motion for her to stay back, all she could focus on was the growing shadows crowding the doorway. Did she imagine it, or was there a flicker of movement and outline melding with the dark? The stories of Maplewood entwined in unseen bonds, and as fear wrapped its fingers around the hearts of the families, the true terror was just beginning to unfold. What was waiting in the shadows? Who had really invaded their homes? The questions gnawed at the edges of sanity, and the night whispered chilling truths that could seal their fates forever. As dawn approached, an unsettling tension grew. With the first light, what revelations might come? Would any of them dare to uncover the truth behind the whispered horrors that haunted them? Mr. Roberts froze, the flashlight beam quivering as it caught the glint of something metallic on the floor. A chilling dread twisted in his gut as he knelt down, his heart hammering louder than ever. It was a key, his key. But how had it ended up down here? Their basement had always been locked tight, a barrier against the outside world. "Dad?" A sudden voice pierced the thick air behind him. He turned to see his daughter, Emily, looking just as frightened as he felt. "What is going on?" "Stay up there," he barked, urgency flooding his tone. Emily hesitated, her eyes darting nervously, but listening to her father was all she knew. With one last shaky breath, Mr. Roberts pointed the light deeper into the basement. Shadows loomed, but he forced himself to press forward, the scratching sound growing louder. It echoed against the concrete walls, raw and frantic. As he moved closer, his foot caught on something. He stumbled and landed hard, his elbow smashing into a pile of old boxes. "Dad!" Emily yelled, voice echoing from above. The moment pulled him back. He couldn't let her down. He pushed himself up and resumed his search, terrified that whatever was down there would find him first. Just then, the whisper came again, louder, more urgent, now almost like a groan. "Let me in." Sarah felt the air thicken as she stood at the door, pulse racing. The chill that crept over her through the open hallway felt electric. She glanced at her reflection in the glass beside her, the fear etched in her features. "Mom! Did you hear that?" Sarah called back, her voice trembling. But there was only silence, a weighty, pressing quiet. "Sarah, I said get away from there." Her mother's voice broke through with desperation, but the curiosity gnawed at Sarah, she had to know. It wasn't just the whisper that lured her. It was something more, a sense of inevitability that they were being watched. Just then, an unseen force slammed the door shut behind her, sending her heart into a wild frenzy. She turned, her breath catching in her throat as the shadows took on a more defined shape, a dark mass gathering at the door. "Let me in." Mrs. Miller's heartbeat echoed in her ears as they gathered around the security feed. The figure at the door shifted slightly, its form becoming even more indistinct. When Mr. Miller reached for the camera controls, his hands faded out. He hesitated. "Be careful." Mrs. Miller gasped, the tension building as they tried to discern any details. Just then, the phone buzzed again, yanking them back. "You've been marked," it read, chilling their blood. Mrs. Miller's eyes widened. "What is happening?" "Whatever it is, we have to make it stop." Mr. Miller's voice trembled with raw fear, but there was no real plan, just the shifting shadows that filled their silly living room. The figure moved closer on the screen, and then it raised its head. The moment froze, as all four pairs of eyes widened in disbelief, terror inching closer to reality. "What is that?" one of the daughters whispered. As panic began to set in, Mr. Roberts finally reached the edge of the basement, staring into the darkness where the noise had become a ghastly symphony of low thumps and groans. He sensed something moving quickly. He raised his flashlight again, ready to confront whatever lurked there, the air crackling around him. The sound suddenly cut off, a vast silence filled the basement, broken only by a slow, deliberate creak. Then Sarah's scream. Footsteps echoed throughout the house, all at once as if passing messages between the families. Questions lingered in the air like dense fog. What was following them? Could they escape the truth, or was it too late? The dawn would bring light, but at what cost? In the shadows, the haunting continued. What awaited them as daylight broke through? Mr. Roberts' heart raced as Sarah's scream pierced through the silence, dragging him back into focus. Panic flooded his veins, propelling him forward despite the overpowering dread that suffocated him. He swung the flashlight toward the sound, its beam slicing through the darkness. "Sarah!" he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. But all he received in return was the echo of his own fear. Emily's voice trembled from above. "Dad, where is she? What's happening?" He couldn't answer. Each breath he took drew more terror into his chest. He had to find her. He had to. A low growl resonated from the depths of the basement, and the shadows twisted unsettlingly. For a moment, he thought he saw eyes lurking in the corners, glowing and hungry. A shiver cascaded down his spine. He had to press on. "Stay close," he yelled to Emily, wishing he could pull her into his protective embrace, but the darkness had already claimed too much ground. As he crawled deeper into the basement, he stumbled over a stack of dusty crates, one crashing to the ground with a thunderous thud. Underneath, a rusted hinge caught his attention, a trapdoor. His heartbeat quickened as he knelt down, pulling at the tarnished handle. A chilling draft wafted up, carrying whispers that sounded eerily like snippets of familiar conversations. "Dad, help!" The voice was unmistakably Sarah. Mr. Roberts felt his blood run cold as he yanked the door open. Blackness swallowed the space beneath, stretching into pitch. Courage wrestled with fear as he debated. The risk was terrifying, but he couldn't leave her there. "Emily!" he called, panic making his voice sharp. "Get the others. I need help down here. I'm scared." Emily's voice wavered, muffled by the oppressive darkness above. "I know. But we can't leave her." He slid down the opening, landing hard on the damp floor below. Every nerve hummed with tension. "Sarah!" he bellowed, voice echoing off the hard walls, mixing with the air thick with dread. Another growl, the sound coiling into his stomach like a whisper from the depths. Suddenly, a flicker in the dark caught his eye. It was a faint glow, pulsating from a wall further in. Breathing heavily, he went toward the light, heart pounding in erratic rhythm. As he approached, the light revealed a mural, each stroke twisted and horrific, a collage of fates he couldn't comprehend. Faces wrapped in despair, trapped in emotional agony, their eyes pleading eternally. It was a ghastly spectacle that drew him in like a moth to flame. "Dad?" Sarah's voice felt distant, tremoring through the wall. "I'm over here." Sirens rang out from afar, their distant wails blending with the whispers, each note begging him to leave, to forget. But Mr. Roberts couldn't. He had to find her. "Please be safe, Sarah," he whispered under his breath, forcing himself to step closer. The moment his fingers brushed the wall, the mural shifted, the eyes merging with fear. Shadows danced wildly as the darkness seemed to breathe around him, tightening like a noose, and then, it hit him a vivid realization. This wasn't just a basement. It was a gateway that something wanted to pass through. A sudden chill swept over him, and he turned to flee, but his path was blocked by a dark figure. It loomed, a mass of disquiet, horridly recognizable yet utterly erased from memory. As he stepped back, fear cascaded down his spine. "Let her go!" he shouted, but the figure responded only with silence. Its breath was a storm of despair. Upstairs, Emily pounded on the floor above, filling the void with frantic cries, but to Mr. Roberts, it felt as though he was being swallowed whole by the creature before him. "Come join us," it urged, voice slithering like oil across his skin. That he took a trembling step back, his eyes darting around for an escape. But the moment lingered, frozen in terror, while shadows beckoned, reality twisted what sacrifice awaited him. "Sarah!" he screamed again as the darkness closed in, suffocating his resolve. If he could just hold on, if he could just save her in a heartbeat, they would finally face the horror waiting at the edge of daybreak. What horrors await them as the dawn approaches? He could hear them now. All around him. Whispers wrapping around his mind like a straitjacket. "Join us," the words coiled and slithered, settling uncomfortably in his ears. The figure ahead, a distinct shadow with no features, just a consuming void, drew closer. Mr. Roberts pressed his back against the mural, the cold surface sending jolts through his body. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, but he couldn't abandon Sarah. She was here, and somewhere out there, behind the wall of horror, was hope. "Sarah!" he shouted, voice raw and desperate. "I'm coming. Help me, Dad." Her voice sang from beyond the darkness, laced with terror. His heart quaked. He squeezed his eyes shut, fighting the urge to dismiss her cries. The shadows whispered promises of peace and escape, but at a price he couldn't fathom. The figure shifted, stepping forward, and a low, hollow laugh reverberated through the basement, chilling Mr. Roberts to the bone. "You can't save her," it said, voice echoing with 1,000 conspiracies. "You belong to us now." "No." The word ripped from his throat like a lifeline. In one swift motion, he grasped the edge of the mural, willing it to give in, to shatter. But the walls tightened, an insistent force holding him back, suffocating his resolve. Each breath became a fight, the weight of pure dread choking him. "Dad, please." Sarah's voice trembled again, cutting through the noise, anchoring him amidst the chaos. He thought of her laugh, the sound of her as she played in the backyard, the warmth of her embrace. "I want to let you take her," he roared defiantly, hands clawing at the grotesque surface, finding purchase. A flicker ignited deep within the mural, mirroring the glow he had seen before. Suddenly, the shadows wailed. The dark figure jerked as if it were repelled by an unseen force. Mr. Roberts pressed harder against the wall, the tension building like the pulse of thunder in a storm. He felt the pull of the trapdoor beckoning, offering both danger and salvation. Would he let the darkness claim him, or would he charge through this and fight for his daughter? Let her go. He felt a surge of energy, fueled by the thought of Sarah. The warmth of her memory clashed with the cold dread surrounding him, igniting a flicker of courage he didn't know he had. The air shimmered, rippling like water that had just been disturbed. The mural began to crack, light streamed from the fissures, illuminating the grotesque images, frail and fading. But the dark figure snarled, shaking with anger, resistance seeping into its form. "You can't escape your fate. Watch me!" he screamed, fueled by raw adrenaline. He slammed his hand against the mural again, feeling it shudder under his touch. The entire basement quaked, the growls growing louder, howling as if the shadows themselves were enraged. The fissures widened, and with a final desperate push, he flung himself against the wall, aiming for that flicker of hope. With a sound like shattering glass, the mural disintegrated. Blinding light surged through the gaps, and he was hurled backward, losing his balance as the darkness recoiled. In those brief seconds, he felt the warmth of Sarah's presence, her laughter merging with the chaos of sound around him. Struggling against the dark tide, he raised his hand, reaching out. "Dad!" His heart sank as he felt the ground slip away, his connection to her fading into nothingness. As the darkness sang around him, he braced for the inevitable impact, but instead of cold dread, an overwhelming warmth enveloped him, pulling him away from the shadows. When he opened his eyes, the basement seemed different. The air was charged with a strange energy, subtle yet palpable. "Sarah!" he shouted, the name echoing in the restored silence. But there was no answer. Now, standing in the space where fear once reigned, doubt crept in. Had he saved her, or had he just unleashed something worse? Panic crawled through him as he turned back toward the trapdoor, half expecting it to edge open, darkness spilling out once again. What awaited him as he stepped back into the den of grief and shadows? As the trapdoor creaked ominously behind him, he knew one thing: the fight was far from over. The trapdoor creaked wider, revealing a space that felt impossibly dark. Mr. Roberts hesitated, heart racing. Each beat echoed the silent terror mounting inside him. The flickering light from the shattered mural cast strange shadows, twisting the remnants of the nightmare into something almost laughable. But deep down, he knew there was nothing funny about this place. "Sarah!" The desperation clawed at his throat. Silence answered him, thick and suffocating. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Abandoning his footing, he leaned closer to the trapdoor, peering into the void below. With a sudden jolt, a chilling breeze snaked up from the darkness, swirling around his ankles like cold fingers. It whispered a promise of concealment, as if the abyss beneath was offering a cover. His mind recoiled at the notion: could this really be a door to the next level of that hell? But then what if Sarah was down there, calling for him from the shadows? What if he was running out of time? He gritted his teeth, summoning the courage he had carved from the light of his memories. He stepped closer and gripped the edge of the trapdoor. "I won't leave you behind," he murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at his resolve. Was he ready to dive into that abyss? Suddenly, the whispers surged again, swirling around him, loud and frantic. "Join us this time," they were laced with a feigned comfort, promising the reunion he so desperately craved. A flicker of doubt crept in. What if they're right? The thought thrummed, sending a jolt of panic through his chest. What if I can't save her? The murmur deepened, morphing into a cacophony that exploded in his ears. Voices layered over one another, filling him with despair. "You are one of us. You've always been no." The word erupted from him, sealing his lips against that dread. He forced himself to take a step forward, gripping the edges of the trapdoor. The darkness beckoned like an insatiable beast, hungry for his spirit. He closed his eyes for a moment, recalling Sarah's innocent smile. "Stay strong," he whispered to the ghost of her laughter. With a fierce determination, he swung the trapdoor wide open. The air thickened, cobwebs and dust swirling around him in a frenzied dance as he descended into the unknown. The moment his foot slipped onto the first step, an electric shock pulsed through him. Raw fear gripped him, almost immobilizing. Below, the darkness seemed to pulse alive. "Sarah!" he called out, attempting to drown out the fear. "Can you hear me?" "Dad!" A faint echo brushed against his ears. His heart soared for a second, but then the light flickered, casting monstrous shadows from the walls. He could barely distinguish shapes as they danced and twisted. The feeling of being watched settled like a weight on his shoulders. Were those eyes? Shadows peering back at him from the crevices? "Dad!" The voice was clearer now, but laced with terror. Hold on. I'm coming. He stumbled down the staircase, steps shaky but frantic, each echo of his footfalls swallowed by the consuming darkness. The air thick with dread pressed against his chest. He felt the urge to turn back, to escape, but the last glimmer of hope pushed him forward one step at a time. As he reached the bottom, the floor beneath him felt damp, sticky perhaps. A shudder ran through him, but he focused on Sarah. If he could just find her, a loud crash echoed behind him, sending adrenaline coursing through his veins. Panic erupted in his chest as he spun around. The darkness seemed to Rithen, an angry entity preparing to strike. Get out. The voice was his own, yet layered, somehow different, tainted by fear and warning. He turned back towards the sound of her voice, calling again, heart pounding in tandem with the thunderous crash. I'm right here. I'm not giving up. But the low growl of the shadows intensified, a deep rumble that reverberated through the very ground. He gripped the wall beside him, an anchor that solidified his resolve. The darkness split open in front of him, and there stood a figure, similar to the one before, but larger now. The whispers gained volume, urging him to succumb. His heart raced, but there was no choice left now. Sarah. His voice trembled, caught between fear and hope. From the darkness, something moved. The figure lunged, and instinct kicked in. With a scream, he dove into the darkness, reaching for the faint outline of his daughter. What would he uncover in the depths of this unending void? Would he find her, or would the shadows claim him as their own? The cold engulfed him as he plummeted into the depths, his body twisting through the suffocating darkness. Time blurred in the rush of fear, echoing footsteps swallowed whole by the abyss. It was like falling into a dream-turned nightmare, the ground rushing up to meet him. With a jarring thud, he landed. The damp floor beneath him squelched, a loathsome texture that seeped through the fabric of his jeans. He forced himself up, panting, every muscle tense and coiled. Sarah! He shouted, his voice ricocheting off unseen walls. A flicker of light broke through the fog of the inky darkness, revealing decayed wood and stones that seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a living entity. He hesitated, summoning what remained of his courage, gripping the wall to steady himself. Dad! The voice curled around him again, just out of reach, desperate but calling him forward. Each syllable cracked like ice underfoot, so fragile he felt it could shatter. Stay close, honey. I'm coming. Panic laced his words, igniting a fire in his chest. He stumbled toward the flicker, the pendulum of shadows swinging wildly around him. Whispers surged once more, each word slick with malice. You cannot save her, you belong with us. Mr. Roberts clenched his eyes shut, fighting the pull of those voices, his willpower warring against the darkness. It was all coming from the shadows, a sinister collective echoing his fears. He pressed his palms against his ears, determined to drown them out, yet, no matter how hard he tried, the shadows clawed at his thoughts, seeping into every crevice of his mind. You've always been one of us, lost, alone. No. He growled back, frustration boiling over. The ground quaked as he forced himself to take a step deeper into that oppressive void, toward the flicker of light. You will not take me. Each step took him further from the trapdoor. The atmosphere thickened, and the air became damp and suffocating, loading him down. Lurking shadows slithered along the edges of his vision, monstrous shapes that stirred, whispering promises of acceptance. They revealed a warped reflection of himself, twisted and tortured, and nothing like the father he fought to be. Sarah! He reached out, as if the very name could cut through the darkness. The air trembled. The flicker surged brighter, revealing a nightmarish gallery of twisted faces caught in moments of anguish. Each blink brought new horrors to light, figures staring back with hollow eyes, families broken, dreams devoured. A low rumble echoed through the air, swelling their triumph. Join us, embrace your place among the forsaken. Again, that pang of doubt flickered. The suffocating pull of despair pressed against him, threatening to drag him under. But then, there came a heartbeat, a glimmer of hope dancing amid that terror. It was a memory, holding Sarah's face in his mind so tightly the darkness quaked. "I won't abandon you," he shouted defiantly. Each word became a brick, building a barrier against the shadows. He charged through the twisted gallery, heart pounding, convinced he could find her in this madness. As he moved, the walls shivered, whispering his deepest fears, his failures as a father. "You let her down. She's alone and scared." "No." The anguish broke from him, tearing out with sheer force. He lunged toward the light, desperation fueling his every movement. Suddenly, the flicker blazed into a beacon. It darted ahead, a moving point of anguish and hope. "Daddy!" He sprinted, each step more frantic than the last, hoping against hope that she was at the end of this twisted nightmare. The shadows twisted in rage, voices overlapping into a dreadful roar. You cannot outrun the past. Just as he reached for the glowing flicker, it vanished, swallowed whole by the veil of darkness. The silence that followed was worse than the roar. An abyss of nothingness creeped in, heart racing. He stood there, anxiety clawing at his throat. Had he just imagined her? Was he truly alone in the depths of despair? Before he could spiral down that path, a rumble echoed around him. It was back. The darkness surged, preparing for something dreadful, and Mr. Roberts stood with his heart pounding, gripping the promise of finding Sarah fiercely. What had he awoken in the layers of shadows? Would he regain that light or vanish forever? The darkness pulsed like a living thing, and Mr. Roberts felt it pressing in from all sides. The whispers grew louder, their mocking tones sharp against his fraying nerves. "You can't hide, you can't run, this is where you belong." He clenched his fists, trying to find a thread of clarity. Panic clawed at his gut, but he couldn't let fear take hold. He gritted his teeth and shouted into the void, "Show yourself." "I'm not afraid." But the echoes twisted in response, a cacophony of his own insecurities. "Not afraid. You're terrified, and so is she. You're nothing without her." He took a shaky breath, recalling her laughter, her smile, the way her face lit up at the smallest joys. Memories fizzled around him like fireworks in the night, beautiful yet tinged with hopelessness. "You'll never see her again," hissed the shadows, now swirling violently. He stumbled forward, pushing through the oppressive veil. As he did, the pungent stink of decay filled his nostrils, each with a reminder of the looming dread. The path beneath his feet shifted, becoming uneven, as if it were aware of his purpose, eager to thwart him. "Sarah!" he shouted again, desperation thrumming through his veins. He fought against the engulfing dark, every step echoing with determination. Yet even as he pressed on, the shadows danced menacingly at the corners of his vision, feasting on his doubts, and then, a flicker, another flash of light punctured the thick gloom. It was softer yet familiar, a warm hue breaking through the oppressive black. He sprinted toward it, driven by instinct, the pace of his heart quickening. The light illuminated faces again, horrific, twisted, yet this time their expressions shifted from anguish into something else, longing. Their mouths opened, and their cries harmonized into a horrifying symphony of sorrow. "Deliver her, deliver yourself!" Mr. Roberts skidded to a halt, feeling his heart thud against his chest. They were not simply sad, they were pleading. He stepped closer, realizing their hollow eyes weren't just filled with despair but a reflection of his own fears, images of past failures, moments he wished he could change. "No. I need to find her," he yelled back, spine straightening as he stared into the abyss of those sunken eyes. He knew he couldn't give in. If he succumbed to this despair, he would be losing her, losing himself. The shadows como a wave, crashing over him, draining him of warmth. "What is your greatest fear?" they whispered, their breath like ice on his skin. His mind flashed to countless regrets, being too busy to listen, missing soccer games, forgetting to say "I love you." "It doesn't define me." The words erupted from him, fierce and unwavering. "I am stronger." And then, unexpectedly, the ground quaked beneath him, trembling with his defiance. The twisted faces began to shift, as if contemplating his words. A low humming vibrated through the air, a melody he hadn't realized was missing. Will you take your place among the lost? The shadows intoned, their voices deceptively calm, coaxing him to join them, promising solace. I want. I will find my way back. He could feel a surge of light gathering deep within him, igniting like a fire. It pulsed and spread, driving the darkness back inch by inch. His heart ached for Sarah, the pure memory of her laughter cutting through the cacophony. That was his weapon against this nightmare. Where is she? He roared, defiance ringing through the shadows. But the laugh of the darkness rang out a cruel, piercing sound that echoed like a shattering glass. You think you can fight us? We know your greatest fear and it's coming, oh, it's coming. The walls closed in, and his courage was met with a forceful wave. The light inside him flickered but did not extinguish. Suddenly, a door splintered open in the wall of shadows, a blinding light pouring through, casting grotesque shapes that danced on the ground. Was that Sarah's voice? He couldn't take it anymore. It was now or never. Just as he lunged for the light, the ground shook violently again, and the faces merged into one every anguished expression. Converging to block his path, he cried out, but the shadows roared, you cannot escape what you are, you cannot escape yourself. With a desperate breath, he dove headfirst toward the light, heart racing, praying it wasn't too late. What awaited him on the other side? Would he find her, or would he lose himself forever? He plunged into the light as if it were a warm embrace, pulling him from the chilling grasp of despair. For a brief moment, everything around him spun and blurred, and he felt weightless. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The purest form of energy surged through him, filling the hollow spaces left by fear and doubt, and then, he landed hard, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. He gasped, blinking rapidly as he fought to adjust to the sudden brightness. He found himself lying on a grassy knoll, a stark contrast to the shadows that had suffocated him. Above him, the sun hung bright in a blue sky, its warmth a stark reminder of life and hope. He quickly pushed himself up, heart pounding, scanning his surroundings. Sarah. He called out, his voice hoarse and unsure. A sense of urgency tugged at him as he searched for any sign of her. The memory of her laughter still echoed in his mind, vibrant and alive, urging him to find her. He stood up, steadying himself on trembling legs. To his left, there was a wooded area, the trees tall and imposing, their leaves rustling like whispers. To the right, an old path wound through the landscape, leading deeper away from the cleared knoll. Where do I go? He muttered to himself, every second feeling like an eternity. A sudden rustle from the direction of the trees made him turn, an instinctual fear gripping him. Is someone there? He shouted, squaring his shoulders. But the only response was the soft sigh of the wind. His heart raced as he moved toward the trees, an undeniable pull urging him to explore whatever lay within. As he stepped cautiously onto the path, the familiar scent of pine mixed with the earthy aroma of the forest wrapped around him. Each sound, the crunch of twigs beneath his feet, the distant call of a bird felt amplified in the heavy silence, but then he heard it, a whisper, clearer this time yet hauntingly reminiscent of the shadows. Deliver her, it cooed, echoing through the trees, filling him with dread. Stop it! He shouted, clenching his fists. The echoes morphed, shifting into the pained cries of tortured souls from the darkness. But even as he fought to drown them out, he could feel the chill creeping back, threatening to seep through the cracks he'd just sealed. As he ventured deeper, the trees closed in around him, the sunlight dimming with each step. The whispers came faster now, merging into a horrifying chant, feeding off his anxiety. You're losing her, you're losing your chance. He forced himself to keep moving, his heart pounding like a drum, the words cutting into his resolve. No. I won't give up on her. He shouted, each step heavy with purpose. Suddenly, he stumbled into a clearing where a figure stood at the edge, back turned. It was her silhouette, fragile and ethereal. Sarah! He yelled, rushing forward, but she didn't turn. The light from the sun haloed her, blinding him momentarily. Please, turn around. His voice cracked, desperation clawing at his throat. But just as he reached out for her, the dark whisper curled around him once more, you should have listened, you should have protected her." The figure dissolved into the air like smoke, leaving him gasping in horror, his heart fracturing once more. No. The shadows surged back, enveloping him in icy tendrils, suffocating him in an embrace of despair. He stumbled backward, fighting against the overwhelming darkness, but it clawed and wrapped tighter around him. "Come back!" he cried, feeling the light fading. As fear threatened to consume him, realization crashed upon him like a wave. "I need to confront the truth, I need to see what I'm pushed to forget." With newfound determination, he steadied himself. "You won't take her from me. I will find her again, and I won't lose myself in the process." Even as the shadows howled, he pressed forward, ready to reclaim what he had lost. But with each step, more voices rose, a symphony of anguish that begged to drown him. Was the path ahead even real? Or was he destined to an eternal battle with himself, spiraling deeper into madness? And in the heart of the shadows, buried beneath layers of despair, he felt something stir. Could it be hope or an illusion? The truth awaited him just beyond the darkness, and he needed to find it before it slipped away once and for all. Would he resist or surrender? Mr. Roberts stood amid the chaos of swirling shadows, pulse thrumming with furious energy. He could feel every whisper, every echo of despair clawing at his mind, yet there was no time to succumb. "I want to let them take you," he shouted into the void, his voice steady despite the cacophony that he focused hard on Sarah's face, her laugh ringing through his memories, igniting something fierce within. With blazing determination, he pressed on through the thickening darkness, pushing past the dismal whispers that tried to pull him into despair. No hesitation, no fear, he reminded himself, firming his grip on the haunting reality. He could almost see her, a flicker of warmth and light dancing just beyond his reach. The echoes clang against the walls of fear, and he defied them 1 foot at a time. There it was again, the echo of her voice. "Dad!" The sound reverberated like a lifeline, guiding him through the encroaching shadows. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming." He sprinted forward, heart racing, the darkness writhing and hissing around him. The shadows roared, growing louder like a tempest, eager to swallow him whole. "You can't escape," they hissed, but he roared back, "I will save her." The shadows roiled and twisted, morphing into memories of regret and despair, fragmented images of moments he wished he could relive differently. "You're too late," they shrieked, but he held his ground, memories becoming fuel. He wasn't just fighting for him, he was fighting for her. The silhouette of Sarah flickered before him, outlined in halos of golden light. A table laden with family dinners, laughter shared, moments missed weighing heavily on his heart. "I'm sorry," he gasped, but the darkness only cackled, echoing his weak attempts until he found the voice straining under the weight of sorrow. "Don't listen. Fight back," he told himself, pressing on as he felt the warmth of love push against the chill, a warmth he refused to accept lost. With one final rush, he surged forward to the last wall, beating back the voices with every ounce of love in him. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted at his fingertips, forcing the shadows away, hissing in fury as they were torn asunder by raw determination. "No more!" he bellowed, wielding his love as a shield. As the shadows fragmented, a gateway opened ahead. Beyond it, he saw Sarah standing alone, tears streaming down her face, heartbroken and frightened. "Dad!" she cried, reaching out. "Sarah!" In a heartbeat, he charged through the opening, wrapping her in his arms, warmth enveloping them both. I'm here," he whispered, relief flooding through them. The shadows howled in outrage, swirling around them, but they stood firm against the billows of anguish. "You're not going to lose her again," he roared, love empowering their resolve to fight back against the encroaching darkness. The light of their bond ignited, pushing them through the shifting void. Hand in hand, they moved as one, uttering defiance to the darkness. "The past is behind us. We are stronger together." They stepped through into a new reality, bursting free from the darkness, a blinding brilliance that soothed their wounds. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves under a sunlit sky, feeling alive with warmth and joy. The other families emerged from their trials, the Millers and the Simmons, lost but finally found, each carrying their shadows as reminders rather than weights to mar. Roberts felt Sarah squeeze his hand tightly, hope flickering in their intertwined strength. He took a shaky breath, heart bursting with gratitude. We faced it together. Around them, the eerie remnants of their terror dissolved. No dark whispers or lingering shadows dared chase them anymore. Instead, they found the laughter of children playing and families reunited, grateful and healing that in the heart of Maplewood, the cursed night wasn't an end, it was a testament, a new beginning crafted from the ashes of fear. The families would rebuild, remember, and cherish their bonds, no longer held hostage by what once haunted them. As they stood there, hugging tightly, they all understood. It was the shared pain and love that created an unwavering strength, a lesson learned deeper than any horror could take away, but the future whispered of troubles still unseen. With a lasting sense of purpose, they turned to each other, knowing they'd face whatever must come together. If you've enjoyed this thrilling journey and want to catch more exclusive stories, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support and smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how the darkness was conquered. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the light. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your unwavering support is the reason these stories continue.